In this session, I'll walk you through how to save, package, import, move, copy, and send presentations. As with any PowerPoint and Excel, it's a good idea to save things often. Just click on Save, and you're done, right? Well, not exactly. With ActiveGraf and the ActiveGraf enabled content, you can make very convenient packages of everything, your associated PowerPoints, Excels, and all the ActiveGraf content in one convenient package. We recommend that at any major level of work, any major completion of work, you create a package. And what a package does is it saves all the content in one place. The way to package files is, firstly, to save them as the PowerPoint and Excel files. Click on that. And then click on the ActiveGraf ribbon. You'll see that there's a package button. Just click Package File. And when the dialog box opens, make sure you've saved everything as we said. Click Next. And here you have the opportunity to add files to the package. So let's go ahead and add some instructional files to this so that the person that receives and opens this can read the install info. We can also add and change the names. For instance, give it a version, date, and press confirm. Now the package is ready and we're ready to save among our other ACTG packaged files. And we can just give it its own name, use the date again, and we are done. Now, the PowerPoint and any Excel that it needs has been saved and packaged into one convenient ACTG file. I'll get to how to import those in a second. First, a few tips. As I said in the opening files section, it's a best practice to click through your presentation to make sure all charts are loaded. This way, when you save them, you can be sure that all the data are tokenized and refreshed as appropriate and saved in the correct form. Now let me get to Package All. So if we click Package All, what it does is it saves not only this PowerPoint and the associated Excels, but any PowerPoint that is opened and any requisite Excels for them to work. So you can make bigger packages that rely on the same Excels or set of Excels that have more than one PowerPoint associated with them. Creating packages is also the basic way and a very useful way to create versions of presentations. So before you go into a presentation, you create a package, and as you're using that presentation, it may change because you're doing scenario analysis. So once you're done with the presentation, you can also save package, and then you have a separate version. Now I'm going to show you very quickly how to import these saved packages. Now keep in mind, to package an Excel and PowerPoint file and all ActiveGraf content together is great. You can only export it and package it if you have ActiveGraf, but you can also import them if you have ActiveGraf. Now I double-click on the ACTG file, and you'll notice that, as with many software, sometimes the window doesn't jump to the fore. So you just find it, it's flashing in orange, it says. Now, here's our import panel. When you're importing files is the best time to rename them and relocate them. So anything in an ActiveGraf ACTG package will come up here. There could be many PowerPoints and many Excels if you use Package All, or one PowerPoint and many Excels also. When you're importing is the best chance to rename them. We'll get into Save As a little bit later. So you can click into the name and say V2, for instance. ActiveGraf will not allow you to save the same file name to the same location to make sure that the tokenization is stable and works well. You can also click in to select the folder and change the folder to whatever you wish. Keep in mind that you can only save ActiveGraf-enabled files to local drives or Box, Dropbox, and other non-streaming cloud drives. So we just click import, and when the import is done, you have the option to either import the directory where it was imported to, or click finish. Now we can also do this with Excel. There's a little bit of a difference. When you package from Excel and you click package, it will only create an ACTG file with the Excel and ActiveGraf content in that Excel and associated Excels if you have charts that have graph data that are from other Excels. In other words, you're one step lower in the pyramid. You're basically looking at the calculations and packaging those. The functionality is the same. So we've gone through how to save files, how to package them, which is really the saving in ActiveGraf. If you're saving ActiveGraf content in packages, it's really packaging them. We've gone through importing them. And then let's talk about sharing in your normal workflow ActiveGraf-enabled files. So if you send just the PowerPoint file as a PowerPoint, you will only send the frames in which the ActiveGraf-enabled graphs are located. But because you're not saving and packaging the ActiveGraf content, that won't go through. So there's a workaround. If you're sending something to somebody who doesn't have ActiveGraf, you can very simply just save this as a PDF file, export it as a PDF file, print to PDF. Just remember to set the charts as you would want them to be in a static position. Also, you'll recall that I said if ever a chart gets stuck, you simply click on the corner of that chart and this little menu item will come up. Here, there's another feature. If you don't want to export to PDF and you want to use the PowerPoint file, again, you can also show as saved image. That means that it turns the ActiveGraf temporarily into a picture, and then when somebody sends it back to you, if you put it back into the same location, you can revert this process. Because you have ActiveGraf, you can turn it back into an ActiveGraf by clicking here and saying show as ActiveGraf. Now I'm going to explain to you how ActiveGraf works in save as format. So if you wanted to move a file, you can also do it and rename it by clicking save as. Let's take a look at what happens. So here are your ActiveGraf enabled, your charts and your ActiveGrafs, and you're in an ActiveGraf enabled PowerPoint file. Click Save As. Choose a new name. Say this is use case 3 and save. Now you'll notice that ActiveGraf will go through and it's going through all the charts here in the background. And it's creating essentially clones of all the charts in the original presentation. So this file is now a new file, yet the charts are attached to the same graph data. This is very useful if you're doing different versions of what are essentially the same data and calculations behind, but you want to adjust the way the entire presentation is presented. On the other hand, we'll click into a Excel and show you that save as in Excel. Let's do the same thing. We'll say this is 3. The logic is slightly different with Excel, and the reason is that Excel also carry the graph data. So you'll see that the task pane flashes, it reloads, and now it has cloned the graph data, not the charts. I mean, if there were embedded charts here, it would also clone those charts, but you've now essentially renamed and possibly relocated your Excel, but now you have a fresh set of graph data that are clones of the original graph data. So it's a file with the same structure, but now you have an independent library of the exact same graph data structure. And that can also be very useful if you want to put them on another kind of presentation and you just want to replicate the structure of an Excel together with its graph data structure.